Do your finances make you feel overwhelmed or stressed? Let me show you how solving a Rubik's Cube can help you take control of your financial approach. Derek Mazzarella with Gateway Financial Partners. I never had a Rubik's Cube growing up, but it was something that I always wanted to learn how to solve. Anytime I came across one, I would just start turning the cube to try and match sides, but I was never able to fully solve it, which was always frustrating. As an adult, I made a commitment to learn how to solve a Rubik's Cube, and I noticed there was a lot of similarities to financial planning. Financial planning can seem frustrating and unattainable, but once you understand there are rules and a process, they actually both become easier to solve. People may not realize that there's actually an order to financial planning and to solving a Rubik's Cube. People will tend to skip steps and jump to investing or finding the next hot stock without realizing there's an order involved with financial planning. They really just start turning the cube. So I broke down solving the cube into 6 steps to consider with a financial planning process. So we're going to start with step 1, which is the base layer. You want to build up an emergency fund. And what I found with a lot of people that don't have an emergency fund is that they tend to get in this vicious debt cycle where they're constantly racking up a credit card debt and then trying to pay it down aggressively, then they're getting back into debt. And then making sure you have 3 to 6 months of expenses saved in an emergency fund can help you get out of that cycle. It can also help you take advantage of opportunities. So if there's a job you want, you don't have to take the first job that comes along. You could take the right job. The next thing we want to do is solve this bottom layer. So we want to solve the white piece here and we want to solve the bottom layer. Basically, the next step in the process with your financial plan should be building up your savings rate. Savings rate is really important. A lot of people often jump straight to, investing or trying to say, hey, look, if I earn an extra 1% here or 2% with this fund, I'm going to be in a much better spot. Now, while that does help, having a proper savings rate is going to have a much more impactful return on you and your finances than just getting an extra rate or two on your return on your finances. So now that we have the first layer solved, we have your emergency fund down, we have your savings rate up. The next thing we're going to do is worry about making sure you're properly protected with your finances. So the second layer here is going to be your protection. And why that's really important is if you do everything right, and let's say you save up a lot of money and you're investing it correctly, but you get in an accident, what's going to happen with your finances? And basically, you're going to go backwards. And one thing we don't want to have happen is for you to go backwards financially. So we want to have a nice solid layer here of protection. So most people will tend to get their protection from their work. So their disability insurance is through work, their life insurance is through work. Maybe they find the lowest cost auto or home insurance policy that they can find online. But what that really can do is really disrupt you financially. And one thing we want to make sure we're always doing is making sure you're properly protected. So having more than just your mortgage in a life insurance policy. You want to make sure you have more than enough to cover any other expense that may come up. If you get into a car accident and you're at fault, let's say you're not the one that's hurt, are we making sure that you're covered properly so you're not getting your wages pulled for the rest of your life? So now that we have our 2 layers solved, you're properly protected, we've got your emergency fund, you have a good savings rate. Now we can do the fun stuff. So our next step is step 4, investing. So we're going to solve the top layer here. And when it comes to investing, I know that's the fun stuff. We want to try and mitigate risks whenever we can. So that's creating a diverse portfolio, ensuring that we're not trying to time the market like most people try and do and can't. So we want to just make sure we're taking care of all of our boxes and making sure that all of our investments are working well together. And because when we have everything together, we're going to have a nice coordinated investment approach. Okay, now that we have our investment solved, we want to make sure, step 5, we're matching our corners. So we want to make sure we're doing all those little things that are going to add up over time. And those are going to be things like making sure our investments are in the right taxable account, making sure we're paying attention to our estate plan, making sure we're taking advantage of any little tax breaks we can. Because at the end of the day, all those little things will build up over time and they'll add value and they'll mean a much larger difference in general. All right, now we're at the last step. This is basically putting the plan together. Unfortunately, a lot of people tend to make their financial decisions in silos, and they don't realize how doing one thing over here can affect something else over there. Making sure you have the right mortgage payment that doesn't eat up your ability to save for retirement. So those are all very important things. So at the end of the day, we really just want to focus on putting the plan together. Once you have it, you have the Rubik's Cube solved and your financial plan should be complete. Just make sure you follow the steps, do things in the right order, and you'll be fine. Derek Mazzarella with Gateway Financial Partners. Let me know how I can help.